Mr. President, did you know that only 47% of Americans can name all three branches of government? Imagine navigating a ship without a compass. That's what living in a democracy without political education feels like. To strengthen our nation, I believe mandatory high school civics courses should be implemented, equipping students with the skills they need to participate actively in our democratic society.
Now then, according to this year's Annenberg Constitution Day Civics study, only 7% of respondents could name all 5 rights guaranteed just under the First Amendment rights, and 21% couldn't name any.
Democracy depends on informed citizens. Without basic knowledge of how our government works, we can't hold leaders accountable or make informed decisions at the ballot box. In fact, history shows us the dangers of political ignorance. Authoritarian regimes often rise when people don't understand their rights or decision that protects them. On the flip side, when people are informed, movements like the civil rights movement emerge, proving that knowledge is power.
One of the things that I've seen over the years, and it may be particularly true in Washington, D.C., where we are now, is that this sense of the Constitution being for the people, of the people, and by the people is lost a little bit. It's complex, right? There's a lot of court cases, there's a lot of complexity to it. At the end of the day, though, it's not the province of attorneys and judges. It's a document that if you sit down and read it, takes about a half an hour. Mm-hmm. We've made it a little bit more complicated than we've needed. Also, we're not devoting enough time in our schools. For example, an elementary school teacher has maybe, if she's lucky, 20 minutes per week to talk about these things. So we need to start with the stories. Start with the Declaration of Independence. It said something that no government in the history of the world had said before, which is that people have rights because they're people, because they're human beings. And it took us longer than we wanted. It took a long time before we extended those rights to all people in this country. But we laid down a marker, and we said that you as a human being have the right to life, liberty, and property, right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that pursuit of happiness quest is one that we're still on today. One thing that I'll note, too, about those rather abysmal numbers is that we don't find that young people want to stay in that state of ignorance. And I think we ought not to blame them and not even our teachers. What we have to do better is model this for them and show it why it matters. Civics is a very practical thing, but yet it's made into something that sometimes is very abstract out there, doesn't apply to me. Let's make these things apply to everyday life and show people that the promise of the Declaration of Independence, the promise of the Constitution, the promise of the Bill of Rights is something that really matters to their everyday life.
This is a solution I proposed for a mandatory civics curriculum that could be implemented in the United States of America. First, it would include real-world learning situations like mock elections and debates. Second, it would involve teaching media literacy so students can identify their sources and can be able to identify when the information comes from are fake or comes from sources that are not credible. Third, practical skills like voter registration and understanding policies would also be implemented for real-world applications of the skills they learn. And also, and those would be the 3 important components of the courses. Other countries like Finland have already implemented systems like this one, and they see higher voter turnout and better public engagement. We can follow their lead and make this a nationwide priority. Funding can come from federal and state collaboration, with teacher training programs ensuring political neutrality in classrooms. Right now, civics education is inconsistent across the United States of America. Only 9 states require a full year of civics education. Many students graduate without even learning how to register to vote or understand a ballot. This uneven access creates a gap in political participation. Another issue is misinformation. Without media literacy, people fall for fake news, which divide us even more. It's true that it might be argued that a mandatory civics course could lead to biased teaching, but with partisan oversight in curriculum development, this can be prevented. Others worry about the cost, but investing in civic education pays off with an engaged, informed population. That's a small price to build a strong democracy in the country that will help the country grow and be several social and economic benefits that are much more valuable than the investments that can be made. An informed citizenry is an essential pillar of a democracy to be successful. By making civics education mandatory, we are giving students the opportunity to shape their futures and strengthen our nation. Let's work together to make it happen.